reading Greene's The Comedians. It was published in 1966. I'm here in part 3. The 3 comedians are Mr. Smith, a presidential candidate once, Mr. Brown, who tells the story, who has a hotel on Port-au-Prince, and Mr. Jones, who calls himself Major Jones. We are now in part 3 of this book. It's playing in Haiti, mainly, about corruption there. And this is chapter 1, Roman 1, part 3. I found it hard to sleep. The lightning flashed on and off as regular as Papa Doc's publicity in the park, and only when the rain ceased for a while did some air filter through the mosquito screens. I thought quite a lot about Joan's promised fortune. If I could really share it, would Martha leave her husband? But it was not money which held her, it was Angel. He would be happy enough, I imagined myself persuading her, if I pensioned him off with the weekly issue of puzzles and bourbon biscuits. I fell asleep and dreamt I was a boy kneeling at the communion rail in the college chapel in Monte Carlo. The priest came down the row and placed in each mouth a bourbon biscuit, but when he came to me, he passed me by. I knelt obstinately on. Again the priest distributed the biscuits and left me out. I stood up then and walked sullenly away down the aisle, which had become an immense aviary where parrots stood in ranks chained to their crosses. Someone called out sharply behind me, "Brown, Brown!" But I was not certain whether that was my name or not, for I didn't turn. "Brown!" This time I awoke, and a voice came up to me from the veranda below my room. I got out of bed and went to the window, but I could see nothing through the mosquito screen. Footsteps shuffled below, and a voice further off called urgently, "Brown," under another window. I could hardly hear it through the holy matter of the rain. I found my torch and went downstairs. In my office I picked up the only weapon handy, the brass coffin marked R.I.P. Then I unlocked the side door and shone my torch to show that I was there. The light fell on the path leading to the bathing pool. Presently round the corner of the house and into the circle of the light came Jones. He was drenched with rain and his face was smeared with dirt. He carried a parcel under his coat to guard it from the rain. He said, "Turn out the light, let me in, quick." He followed me into the office and took the parcel from under his wet jacket. It was a travelling cocktail case. He laid it gently on my desk like a pet animal and stroked it down. He said, "Everything has gone, finished, kaput," in 3 columns. I put out a hand to turn on the light. "Don't do that," he said. "They might see the light from the road." "They can't," I said, and pressed the switch. "Old man, I'd rather, if you don't mind, I feel better in the dark." He turned out the light again. "What's that in your hand, old man?" "A coffin." He was breathing heavily. I could smell the gin. He said, "I've got to get out, quick, somehow." "What happened?" "They've begun investigating. At midnight I had a call from Concasseur. I didn't even know the bloody telephone worked. Gave me a shock ringing like that suddenly by my ear. It had never rung before. I suppose they fixed up the telephone when they put the poles in. You're living in a government rest house for VIPs. Very important powers, we called them in Info. Jones said with a ghost of a laugh. "I could give you a drink if you let me put on the light." There isn't time, old man. I've got to get out. Concasseur was speaking from Miami. They sent him to check up. He wasn't suspicious, yet only puzzled. But in the morning, when they find I've skipped where? Yes, that's the question, old man. That's the $64,000 question. The Medea's in port. The very place. I left to put on some clothes. He followed me like a dog, leaving wet patches in his wake. I missed Mrs. Jones's help and advice, for she had a high opinion of Jones. While I dressed, he had to allow me a little light for that. He ambled nervously from wall to wall, well away from the window. I don't know what your game was, I said, but surely with $250,000 at stake, you could be certain that one day they'd investigate. Oh, I thought that one out. I'd have gone over to Miami with the investigator. But they've kept you here. Not if I'd left a partner behind. I hadn't realized time was so short. I thought I had a week or more at least. Or I'd have tried to persuade you earlier. I stopped with one leg in my trousers and asked him with astonishment, "You are telling me, just like that I was to be the fall guy?" No, old man, you exaggerate. You can be dead sure I'd have nipped you off in time, but for you to get into the British Embassy, if it was ever necessary. But it wouldn't have been. The investigator would have cabled okay and taken his cut, and you would have joined us afterwards. How big a cut had you planned for him? I know it's only an of academic interest now. I'd allowed for all that. What I offered you, old man, was net, not gross, all yours, if I survived. One always survives, old man. As he dried, his confidence returned. I've had my setbacks before. I was just as near the grand coup and the end in Stanleywell. If your plans had anything to do with arms, I said, you've made a bad mistake. They've been stung before. How do you mean stung? There was a man here last year who arranged $500,000 worth of arms for them, fully paid up in Miami. But the American authorities were tipped off. The arms were seized. The dollars, of course, stayed in the agent's pocket. Nobody knew how many real arms there had ever been. They wouldn't be taken for the same rude ride twice. You should have done more homework before you came here. My scheme was not exactly that. In fact, there were no arms at all. I don't look like a man with that much capital, do I? Where did that introduction of yours come from? From a typewriter, like most introductions. But you are right about the homework. I put the wrong name on the letter. I talked myself out of that one, though. I'm ready to go, I said. I looked at him when he fidgeted in a corner with the light flecks, the brown eyes, the not quite trim officer's moustache, the grey indifferent skin. I don't know why I'm running this risk for you, a fool guy again. I took the car out on the road with the lights off, and we cruised slowly towards the city. Jones crouched low and whistled to keep his courage up. I think the tune dated from 1940, the Wednesday after the war. Just before the roadblock, I switched the lights on. There was a chance the militiaman was asleep, but he wasn't. Do you pass here tonight? I asked. Did you pass here tonight? I asked. No, I made a detour through a couple of gardens. Well, there's no avoiding him now. But he was too sleepy to be troublesome. He limped across the road and raised the barrier. His big toe was bound up in a dirty bandage, and his backside showed through a hole in his grey flannel trousers. He didn't bother to search us for arms. We drove on down, past the turning, to Martha's, past the British Embassy. I slowed down there. All seemed quiet enough. The Tonton Macoute would surely have put guards at the gate if they'd had known of Jones' escape. I said, "What about going in there? You'll be safe enough." "I'd rather not, old man. I've been a bother to them before, and they won't exactly welcome me." "You'd have a worse welcome from Papa Doc. This is your great chance." "There are reasons, old man." He paused, and I thought he was going to at last confide in me. "But, oh God," he said, "I'd forgotten my cocktail because I left it in your office, on the desk. Is it so important?" "I love that case, old man. It's been with me everywhere. It's my luck." "I'll bring it to you tomorrow, if it's so important to you. You want to try the Medea then? If there's a snag, we can always come back here as a last resort." He tried out another tune. I think it was A Nightingale Sang, but stuck. "To think, after all we've been through together, that I'd leave it." "It's the only bet you ever won." "Bet? What do you mean?" "Bet. You told me you won it in a bet." "Did I?" He brooded a while. "Old man, you're running a big risk for me, and I'll be straight with you. That wasn't exactly the truth. I pinched it." "And Burma? Was that not the truth either?" "Oh, I was in Burma all right, I promise that." "You pinched it from asprays?" "Not with my hands, of course. With your wits again?" "I was working at the time. Something in the city. I used one of the company's checks, but I signed my own name. I wasn't going to be sent down for forgery. It was just a temporary loan, you know. It was love at first sight when I saw that case, and I remembered the brigadiers." "It wasn't with you in Burma then?" "I was romancing a bit there, but I did have it with me in the Congo. I left the car by the Columbus statue. The police must have been accustomed to seeing my car here at night, though not alone, and I went ahead of Jones to reconnoiter. It was easier than I thought. For some reason the policeman was no longer by the gangplank, which had been kept down for latecomers from Mère Catherine's. Perhaps he had a beat. Perhaps he'd gone behind the wall to urinate. One of the crew was on guard at the top, but seeing our white faces, he let us go by. We went up to the top deck, and Jones' spirit rose. He had hardly uttered a sound since his confession. As he passed the saloon door, he said, "Remember the concert? That was a night, wasn't it? Remember Baxter and his whistle? St. Paul's will stand, London will stand." He was too good to be true, old man. "He isn't true anymore. He's dead." "Poor bugger. That makes him sort of respectable, doesn't it?" he added with a kind of yearning. We climbed the ladder to the captain's cabin. I did not relish the interview, for I remembered his attitude towards Jones after he had received the wireless inquiry from Philadelphia. Everything had gone easy up to now, but I had small hope that our luck would last. I rapped on the door, and with hardly an interval the captain's voice came, hoarse and authoritative, bidding me enter. At least I had not woken him from sleep. He was propped up in his berth, wearing a white cotton nightshirt, and he had put on very thick reading glasses, which made his eyes look like broken ships of quartz. He held a book tilted below the reading lamp, and I saw it was one of Simeon's novel, and this encouraged me a little. It seemed to be a sign that he had human interests. "Mr. Brown," he exclaimed in surprise, like an old lady disturbed in a hotel room, and like an old lady, his left hand went instinctively to the neckline of his nightshirt. "And Major Jones," Jones added jauntily, and moved out from behind me into view. "Oh, Mr. Jones," the captain said in a tone of distinct displeasure. "I hope you've room for a passenger?" Jones asked with his unconvincing hilarity. "Not short of schnapps, I hope?" "Not for a passenger, but are you a passenger? At this hour of the night, I would imagine you lack a ticket." "I have the money to pay for one, Captain." "And an exit visa?" "A formality for a foreigner like myself. A formality which is complied with by all, except the criminal classes." "I think you're in trouble, Mr. Jones." "Yes, you might say I'm a political refugee." "Then why have you not gone to the British Embassy?" "I felt I'd be more at home in the dear old Medea." The phrase had a good music hall ring, and perhaps that was why he repeated, "Dear old Medea." "You were never a welcome guest, Mr. Jones. I had too many inquiries about you." Right, I'll stop this here, because it's quite a long chapter, and I'll finish it soon. Bye-bye.